Hello there, this is Brian Kidd, aka the Holistic Programmer, and today I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the things that got me interested in programming and the realizations that I've had recently. Just about wrapping up my Treehouse tech degree in full stack JavaScript development. And during the course of finishing this tech degree, I realized that my main interest, where it lies in within, I guess, the industry of programming or web application development, is really the front end. And what I mean by that is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some middle tier stuff like PHP and Node. But that's the design and the front end and things of that nature, everything from user experience design, which is like minimal coding, back to about PHP or so. Those are the things that, PHP and JavaScript, those are the things that make me, I guess, really excited to program. And when about several years ago, when I went back to school, I didn't really expect to learn languages that had to do more with the middle tier of the database. So C#, Java, and MySQL, and also some web server administration stuff and some networking things, some classes that I took in networking as well. But when I went back and I realized when those classes started, when I first started, it was mostly the front end stuff, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and I was totally excited. In the second quarter, I had a Java class, and it just looked a little bit intimidating to me. And so I almost quit, honestly, because I didn't really see the point in doing it, because I didn't see the bigger picture. And thankfully I kept with it, and I did fine, and I went through the whole degree. But when I went through the whole degree, by the time the degree was over, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Did I want to go into mobile app development too? Did I want to concentrate on application testing, or did I want to get a different degree at a different school to get, to supplement what I've already done? And, there's all these books, I have some here that I've used over the years and have interested me, and anywhere from these HTML and CSS and styling with CSS, okay, great, yeah. And, this book is actually really important, Web Developer Foundations book. That book, we'll get back to that later. Anyway, all these books about developing, design, and everything else, and as most programmers know, the online resources are probably the best anyway, but it has to go back to a mentality that I had back in the day when I was learning other things like Java. Things that I was like, what am I learning this for? This doesn't really seem like it applies to what I want to accomplish. And so, by the way, this is a really good book too. The Design of Everyday Things. Oh, I'm holding it upside down. The Design of Everyday Things. And this one is by Donald Norman. Donald A. Norman. But enough of that. The point is, I was thinking back today, just getting nostalgic about things, and I was thinking about a trig class that I was taking in high school. And the teacher was up there probably doing some quadratic equation stuff or something pertaining to the material, and there was this kid next to me. I'll never forget this guy. He's kind of had this David Spade kind of demeanor, really funny guy, but just everybody's sitting there just deep in thought trying to figure out what the teacher's doing on the board, and he just blurts out, "Who cares?" And then the teacher started getting irate a little, just sort of mad at least. Like, come on, I care, you need to learn this. And it just dawned on me sort of during that week that sometimes it's not, something that you're learning might not seem applicable to your life directly, but it might not be teaching you what to think necessarily, or how do you, or what to do exactly, but how to think a certain way, to get your mind to think maybe in terms of math, to think more mathematically, maybe to think about things a little bit differently. And so this also reminded me in college I had this logic class, and I wasn't doing very well. There was a lot of other stuff going on in my life. I was kind of distracted, and I'd never taken a logic class before, and some of the concepts were just foreign to me in terms of Modus Tollens and St. Elsom's ontological argument, and things that I'd never really thought about, and I'd never really thought about sort of logic statements and syntax and things like that. And so I wasn't doing very well. In fact, I had to get at least a 2.0 in order for my credit to transfer to the next school that I was going to go to. And so I looked and I calculated that in order to get a 2.0 in the class, I'd have to get a 4.0 on the final. And so I was like, you know what, let me look over this material. Let me actually see if I can digest it and calm down a little bit and not be overwhelmed and see what happens. Well, it ended up that I started actually enjoying some of the concepts and of logic. And I got a 4.0 on the last test, and thankfully I got enough credit for the class to transfer, for it to count for transfer credits. So then I was thinking about that class, and I never thought I'd really use concepts of logic ever again. I was just like, I just needed that class to pass and to get into a different school. Well, programming, as most of the people watching programming know, logic does apply to programming very much so. So then we get, I used it later, at least the how to think mentality, right? And so then, around the time I went to this university in Seattle, and I was about to graduate, and I had this friend. I was about to graduate in journalism with a minor in music, and I had this friend who was another musician. He's making all these awesome websites, and I just couldn't believe how cool these things were. And I knew we were about the same age, and I knew his interest, and a lot of his interests were similar to mine, and I couldn't believe that he was building these websites because I didn't think of him as a computer geek necessarily. So that was the first, about around that time, the early 2000s or so, that really stoked my interest in what I would later call programming. Really was front-end development, or predominantly front-end development, web design and developing. But I was about to graduate, and so I got my degree, and I got some jobs, and I finally went back to school. I think it was inevitable, honestly, considering the journey that I think I needed to go on. Several years ago, when I went back to school, I went for this degree called Web Application Programming. And I think I'd mentioned the Java class and how that freaked me out. Well, when I went back to school and I finally got that degree, when I went through to get the degree and I earned the degree, I was working a couple jobs during the time. So that was like 2013 to 16, or around then is when I graduated in 16. And, I think what really I took away from that degree are there's four main aspects to programming, like computer programming, and four, I guess, subfields, and that's design, developing, and then like the middle tier part, or database as well. Actually I would say networking and database. So design, developing, and then what I would say networking, computer networking, especially web server administration, when you're dealing with protocols and setting up domains and things like that. And then, of course, database. Now, the web server administration stuff, I dug it. And then we've got the database stuff. It was like a necessary evil for me. It just didn't really, I appreciate it more. But my point is, I think when people come into web developing or programming, they kind of come from either the design to database mentality or the database design mentality. I'm more of the first, that I kind of came from design to database, the way my thinking was, my natural proclivity. It's the way I thought, the way my disposition is, the way my mind works, basically. And so recently, going back to about to finish the tech degree, when I went through this full stack JavaScript development, which of course included database, right? Included everything on the back end as well as the front end. As I started getting more and more into it, I realized I can do this. It starts making more sense, whereas at Cascadia, the college that I went to previously, we were using predominantly the .NET framework, right, with C#. In this full stack development, we were using Express, the Express framework, and it's mostly C, JavaScript. Well, once I started getting back to the back end, I realized that this stuff is just, I mean, it's actually a struggle to do some things, believe it or not, with the browser and like media queries and things like that and making sites responsive. But those things I don't mind because I wake up and I think about those things. I dream about those things. They don't bother me, right? They don't, yes, they can be a pain in the ass, but they don't make me super stressed to the point where I just am like, why am I even doing this? Where some of the stuff dealing with, especially, I would say, like no package manager and some of the things that go in with that, and dealing with how Node updates and things like that. Node.js is kind of, to put it mildly, a pain in the ass. So, but if I really enjoyed it enough, that I guess hardship, I would overcome it. I wouldn't worry about it so much, and I still am interested in knowing that stuff, but only as a complement to my front end skills that I really value more. So these are the point with this whole thing. It kind of goes back to when I was sort of in a euphoric state, to say the least, from getting acupuncture, which is a healthy thing to get. Now that my mind is more, I guess, in the center of things, as opposed to being depressed or low or sort of high, I'm able to think about what I really want to do and what's natural for me, without thinking about what's going to pay more. You know, what's looked up to. What will people like? Will people respect me more if I say? Will they respect me more if I say I'm a front end developer, or if I say I'm a full stack? I know full stack LAMP, and I also know, you know, the mean and MERN stacks, which are JavaScript stacks, or I know all these different, I know how to do all these different things in programming. I can build web apps, I can build mobile apps, I know Swift and Angular and blah. That's awesome if that's something that you really feel is something that makes you happy. That's the key word, is happy. If that's something that really is something that you have a passion for, a true passion for, and you aren't worrying about how other people see you and how much money you'll make. Those are important, especially the money thing. I honestly worry about that more now that I'm old, than I worry about what people will think. The money part. But I really truly think, like, for instance, I do music licensing. On the side, I do some other things for money that I'm going to continue to do, and then that'll be, who knows where those things will go. But the money shouldn't really be the primary concern, and how you'll be viewed by others shouldn't be, your reputation or prestige shouldn't be the most important thing. It's obviously as simple as it sounds, and it is simple. It's just that we complicate things as human beings. It's just being happy. And so I'm about, I'm going to take the final in a week or so in the full stack JavaScript tech degree from Treehouse, and I know I'm going to ace it. At least I hope. I'm sure I'll do fine. It doesn't look too difficult, but there's some concepts in there I need to polish up on. But all in all, the point is, I really kind of going back to my previous vlog, is that it's really important to, when you go on a certain journey, you might think, why am I even learning this? What am I doing? This is silly. I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't know how this applies. It's kind of to trust your intuition. For instance, when I went back to school, I remember I just wanted to get a couple certifications. And I think it was like an HTML and CSS, maybe JavaScript or something, like a few certs. But when I was talking to the lady on the phone, there's something in the state that I live in, Washington State, called worker retraining. And the funds for worker retraining through the state, they can be granted to you. You can get unemployment compensation while you go back to school, but only if under certain stipulations. And she basically sold me on the fact that she thought that I probably wouldn't get the money from the state unless, and also the grants or whatever else I needed in order to help pay my tuition, unless I just went for the whole degree. And I bought it, and I thought, how hard can it be? Well, by that second quarter, when I was learning Java, when I was learning networking concepts that I didn't know much about at all, and then I was learning database as well. I was learning some stuff about database, some intro to database class, and then I was taking, actually, the Adobe Illustrator class. I liked that class. That was cool. It was like Vector Graphics, I think was the name of the class. But when that was a kind of come to Jesus moment when I said to myself, man, I think I'm gonna bail, dude. And I didn't because there must be something in this. I gotta trust the process. And there was a couple of great teachers, especially the Java teacher, that encouraged me to stay, and I'm really happy about that. But he didn't really encourage. I mean, it was more like I could tell the person thought, stick with this. Programming is not for everyone. In fact, true programmers, if you ask me, they're maybe, I don't even think they're 1% of the population. And what I mean by that are people that are naturals, people that think like a true programmer. And I don't know how to define that. Maybe I'll do that in another video. But a true programmer, so people that are natural, they have a natural proclivity to being a programmer, to being a full-on programmer. In terms of, not to say that I'm not a programmer, but what I mean by that is like machine learning, lower. It's called the lower end, but higher. I look at it as more towards the binary, more technical things, almost thinking like a computer, or being able to talk to a computer, if you will. To think like a computer and to interact with a computer in a natural way. It just comes natural to you. That's a rare thing. They're out there. They are out there. But the field is so broad, like I mentioned in my previous blog, that you can find something within the field of programming, within web developing, web design, or going to the database stuff, doing stuff in IT, technical support. As you know, I'm not going to name them all, but there's so many different things that you can do within the tech field and within programming. So just do what makes you happy, but know that along the way you might run into things that you might wonder, like, why am I learning this? This is crazy. Do I need to know this? And you might not be doing those certain things that you've learned in your job every day, or even or even every week. You might do them only occasionally, but they're good to know. They're good to know because you can communicate with other people that within your field, because it's all interconnected, right? And if you can communicate with other people, if you can be a web designer and be able to communicate with someone that's a machine learning engineer or something, that's all, at least somewhere your paths might cross. That's a pretty extreme example, but I hope you get the point. So anyway, be well, and I'm signing off right now, and I will hopefully make a vlog soon. Have a good day. Bye.